Hey, my name is Dr. Sean Price, clinical coordinator at theFIX, and I had a conversation with a couple of patients, and we were going through and we went through their report of findings with them, and they required some pretty extensive care. They had some blood sugar issues, they had some diabetes issues, diabetes, thyroid issues, adrenal fatigue, their brains were not working properly. They needed some pretty extensive treatment. So we went over their treatment plan with them, and they had, the treatment plan laid out that was going to address every one of their issues. Okay, and it was expensive. It's a fairly expensive treatment plan. They said they had to go with another doctor who's here local that does a 40-day program to help patients lose weight. So they felt like that was, they wanted to go and check that out. So they ended up going that route with that process, and it was probably about half the price of what they would have paid, in our office. The key to that was, though, they were dealing strictly with a weight loss issue. There was no metabolic correction. There was no, they were using HCG drops. They were using low-calorie diet, things to basically lose weight. But these patients, they weren't willing to try to address everything and fix the problem. They wanted to go after another symptom. And it made me think about it, and that's in human nature, we tend to kind of do that. And it made me remember something that I went through personally, because I'm a human and I do these things. So I want to give you an example of something that happened to me with my yard at my house and translate that into making your healthcare decisions, okay? So my wife and I and our 4 kids, we moved into our house that we currently live in. And when we moved there, we moved from a condo, so we didn't have a yard, we didn't have any kind of yard expense or anything like that. So I really didn't know what perspective to know, because when I moved into this house, it had a beautiful yard and it had a bunch of the hedges were all trimmed and it had a lot of really nice landscaping, and it was really, really well kept. So I'm like, okay, so we need to get somebody to do this, because I didn't have the time to be able to keep it up myself. So I started calling around, and I found a company that did all the pesticides, they did all the upkeep, they trimmed all the hedges, and it was $290 a month. And I found another company who would do it for $100 a month. They didn't do the pesticides or anything like that, but they still would trim the hedges once a month and mow the yard and everything. So I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna save the money. So I went ahead and I went with a $100 a month company. So he worked for me for about 5 months. In that 5 months, we started having issues with, he wasn't coming in consistently, and the edges weren't looking nice, and it basically was not doing a good job. And so we ended up having to fire him, and I went with another guy who was $175 a month, and I hated going with him because I didn't want to spend the extra money. I'm like, that's a $75 a month increase. So I went with him for months 6 through 12. As we're going through this process, we started noticing that our beautiful, lush green yard was now, and this guy did some chemical treatments, okay? So this beautiful, lush green yard was now starting to have these thorns coming up, to the point that our dogs couldn't go out in the backyard without, like, you would see them kind of prancing through because of all the thorns. The kids couldn't go out there with bare feet. And what this gentleman had told me was that basically the first guy had done a bunch of foreclosures, and he had contaminated his lawnmower with the seeds from this weed. And when he did our yard, it got into our yard with the weed. So the weed started growing. So he's spraying it and he's cutting it and he's doing the things he can do. And finally we got to the point where he couldn't stop it. So he said, look, we're gonna have to replace your backyard. It's gonna run about $6,000. It's like, man, I don't want to spend $6,000 on a backyard. I'm like, okay. So I got a quote from him, and I got a quote from another company that was gonna be $13,000 to do the same work. And but what they were going to do is they were going to take the top layer of the soil off, so they make sure that they got all the seedlings out, and they were going to do all this other stuff that this guy wasn't going to do. Well, I again went with this option, and he did the $6,000 replacement for me. So he did the replacement over the next 12 months. I paid him $175 a month. Over the next 12 months, he continued to spray, he continued to do this, and we got the yard replaced towards the end of summer. So during the winter, when it was dormant, everything was okay. When the summer started coming back around, those weeds started coming back up because he hadn't removed that top layer. So the weeds started coming back up. Take that with a patient, for example, who's only doing a weight loss program. Those metabolic issues start coming back up. So the weeds started coming back up. I spent another year with him. Finally, at the point where it had spread throughout the entire front yard as well, and I asked him, I said, what's going on with that? He goes, I've done the best I can, but with what I charge you, I can't afford the chemicals that will keep your yard looking the way it needs to look. So At that point, we had to replace our entire yard, and I went with the original company that was the $290 a month, and it cost me $13,000 to replace our entire yard. Okay, so here's the first part of that lesson. Saving money, contaminating my yard. Saving money led me to a yard replacement. Saving money on that led me to basically back to the exact same place but worse, costing me $13,000 to replace my yard. A total over a period of 25 months of $22,650 because I was too cheap to pay the company that could have done it right in the beginning for $290 a month. If I had paid that company from the beginning to do it right, it would have cost me $7,250 over the same 25-month span. And I would have only been paying $290 a month. I would have saved almost over $15,000 by doing it right the first time. Plus, I wouldn't have spent 2 years dealing with dogs with stickers, kids that couldn't play in the yard. We didn't enjoy our yard for 2 years because of all the stickers and all the weeds. So the point on this is saying, when you're faced with something and you're dealing with an issue, if it's a roof, if it's your health challenge, whatever it is, fix it right the first time, because these little fixes, in the long term, they end up costing you up to 3 times more, and they cost you time. They cost you time, they cost you suffering, they cost you quality of life. So when you're dealing with your health, if you've got something going on that requires a treatment plan that's going to address mental function, it's going to address brain-based therapy, it's going to address structural, it's going to address all the things that are the problem, fix the problem. Don't go and try to nitpick it, because it's going to cost you more in the long run. I hope this makes sense. It's just a perspective that I've gained in life, and when I was working with those patients, it kind of reminded me of that, so I thought I would shoot a video and share. All right, have a great day. See you on the next video.